This video is going to be me giving my thoughts on the Modern Warfare 2 beta and why I think it's an absolute camp fest at the moment. Now, they do have plenty of time to still correct this between now and the full game's launch. However, there is some things I do want to discuss, and it's mainly about the camping and the kind of system they have in place for these campy style players. Now, throughout the gameplay, you will see me pretty much camping, and that's because I wanted to get the point across that if you played this way, you do actually perform pretty well, because that is the way they've designed the game. Now, if you watch any of my Warzone gameplay or you watch any other game that I do tend to play, I like to play aggressively. I like to use movement mechanics to my absolute advantage, and when I feel like I'm slowed down in a game, I tend not to enjoy it as much because I don't like sitting in one area and camping. But I just wanted to get the point across with this game and with this gameplay. Now, the first thing I think is contributing to the whole campiness aspect is the minimap. Now, the fact that you do not show up on the minimap whilst firing any weapon is going to mean that players don't even know where you are 90% of the time. Now, this does scare players from running around because they don't know where people are. Someone could be holding a corner, and to be honest, everyone's holding corners in this game, and that is pretty much how it's played. So I can understand why people do not want to move around the map. Until UAVs are fired in the air, no one actually moves in this game, and to be fair, I can kind of understand why to some extent. And I do think if they were to revert back to the old minimap style, people will tend to run around the map a little bit more, and hopefully giving those aggressive players a little bit of an advantage for actually being aggressive in the first place. And then for anyone who doesn't want to show up on the minimap, you can just use suppressors. It means it works out pretty well for everyone. And then we've got spawn mechanics, which I don't know how it's working right now in this game, because you can basically spawn on your teammates, or it's kind of based around the logic of where capture points are, who's captured that point. It's such a weird way for the spawns to work, and I feel like they should just have a designated area where players spawn in, and then the enemy players cannot breach that spawn area. It just kind of makes perfect sense. Or just have certain spawns on the map. That is just a better way to do it, and some other Call of Duty games actually do have better spawns. I don't know why they can't just use similar logic, but this is definitely making it really weird and really difficult to understand where players are actually coming from, and hence contributing more to the campiness aspect of the game. Because if you're running around, you kill a player, and then the teammate spawns on top of them, and then you die, I mean, there's no real benefit to actually running around. The next point is a really big one, and that is footstep audio, and I feel like everyone can pretty much agree on that. Within about a 30-meter radius, you can pinpoint exactly where a player is coming from. If they're just about in a regular jog, you can definitely figure out where they're coming from. So most players tend to sit still and just wait for players to come to them. I mean, hell, that's what I did in this gameplay. I pretty much just waited to hear where players are coming from, and I just basically pre-aimed that location every single time, and it worked every single time. Now, my only issue with this and complaining about the fact that the footstep audio is too loud is the fact that they could potentially revert this back to the Modern Warfare 2019 footstep audio, which we all know how Warzone footstep audio is like in the game. Is absolutely terrible. And that is why I'm scared to actually complain about this, because the actual audio in this game is very good, and having that directional audio again is something that could be very beneficial to players. I feel like all they need to do is reduce the actual volume just a tiny bit, and then also on top of that, reduce the radius or the distance you can hear players coming from. I think that's kind of the main thing, is the distance. I don't know if they'll mess this up by trying to fix it. It's kind of one of those things where it's very possible that can happen, but I do feel like if they can get it in a good spot where they just reduce the audio a bit and reduce the range a bit, then we can be in a perfectly solid spot to actually still be able to use footstep audio in this game to our advantage, but without having people hear players from like miles away. And that brings me on to my final point, which is probably going to take up the majority of the rest of this video, and that is the actual movement mechanics. Now, there's quite a lot of things to kind of unpack here when it comes to movement in this game, and we'll start off with sprint to fire speeds. Now, sprint to fire speeds as well as aim down sight speeds are just a bit too slow in this game, and that goes for any weapon you're using. Assault rifles, SMGs, you name it, those guns are ridiculously slow. Now, if it's going to take you the same length of time to get your gun down to kill an enemy as it does for you to die, that's not a good spot to have this game in my opinion, because if you run around the corner, you pretty much have no chance when it comes to someone pre-aiming you, and again, that is going to contribute to the overall campiness of this game. If running around means that you're going to die 9 times out of 10, then you're not going to be running around very much more. You're just going to hold angles like the other players do. But if they do reduce the sprint to fire times on every single weapon across the board and reduce the ADS time as well, then even if you have a 40-60 chance, you'll still take it to be a bit more of an aggressive player if that is your style of play. So people will still tend to do it, even if you give the slight advantage to the people that are holding angles still, because that is the way you want to design your game. But you do still need to give some kind of chance or fighting chance to the players that want to play aggressively. Right now, it's pretty much 100%. If you are pre-aiming, you're going to win the gunfight. There's no doubt about it. It doesn't matter how skilled the other player is. The next thing is sliding and dolphin diving. Now, both of these things I'm going to put together because, let's be perfectly honest, they're pretty much pointless at the moment. Now, they basically allow you to do a good movement mechanic, but are completely obsolete because they don't actually work very well in the game at all. Now, if we remember from older Call of Duty games, dolphin diving used to allow you to shoot and dive at the exact same time. And the same goes for sliding as well. We only need to think back to Warzone and Modern Warfare 2019, where you can slide and shoot at the exact same time. Now, this is a great mechanic, especially when you're dealing with the camping style of players. You basically are allowed to dolphin dive into a room or slide into a room, have a bit more dynamic movement when you are entering these rooms, because let's be honest, at the moment, all you can do is run around the corner or bunny hop, which, let's be honest, bunny hopping is not even that easy. So if they just made the sliding mechanic actually work well, and the same with the dolphin diving mechanic, then people wouldn't need to learn all these other button combinations to deal with campers or just to move around the map. Because let's be perfectly honest, when is the most time we use movement mechanics? When we don't expect a player to be hiding in a corner, we tend to use a lot of the movement that's available to us to evade shots, because let's be perfectly honest, in this game right now, if you're getting shot at, you're pretty much dead. There's no way to actually really evade shots, and I feel like this is what's factoring in to that insanely fast time to kill that we're all experiencing, because there's no way to actually run away from gunfights anymore. The only way you can run away is just by dying and then respawning. Now, if you factor in that the TTK is already really quick in this game anyway, and then you can't run away, then it's going to feel like you're getting instantly deleted every single time. So being able to shoot while sliding and dolphin diving is very important in my opinion. If they do not add in these mechanics, I feel like a lot of players will fall off of playing this game. And I think it's a huge thing they definitely need to add in, because it's the only movement mechanics we'll have available to us to use. And anyone who likes utilizing movement, now you don't need to be Jowo, you don't need to be spinning around in circles, you don't need to be doing any of these things. I completely agree with that. And that is why they removed slide cancelling, and I'll completely agree with that change as well. Because for the average player, it might have been very difficult if you don't have paddles or special controllers to make these movement mechanics work. But let's be perfectly honest, it's very easy to slide, it's very easy to dolphin dive, so just make those mechanics work well so people can actually use them. And then on top of that, I do feel like the speed of the slide needs to be buffed, and the speed of the dolphin dive needs to be buffed as well, because being floating in the air without being able to shoot for that length of time is absolutely ridiculous. And then also sliding for that length of time without any reasonable boost to actually slide is pretty ridiculous as well, considering you can't actually shoot back during this period of movement. And I feel like this is something they should definitely add in, regardless of whether they allow you to shoot whilst dolphin diving or while sliding. They definitely need to give you some kind of boost so that you can actually use it as a viable way and means of movement to at least avoid getting shot at. I feel like that's the most important thing, is that you can't even use these mechanics for what they were intended for, which is actually avoiding gunfire. So there we have it. Those are my thoughts on the overall kind of campiness and playstyle of Modern Warfare 2's beta. Now, hopefully they correct some of this stuff, as it will make the game feel a lot better. It'll keep people playing a lot longer, and a lot of the other things like UI changes I'm sure they'll fix before the game fully releases anyway. But this was some of the stuff that I feel like was most important to me during my playtime of the Modern Warfare 2 beta. But let me know what you think about all of this down in the comments below. Do you agree with some of the stuff I said? Do you disagree? Let me know, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much for watching.